Hi, Kevin Coop here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. You know, I've been thinking and reading a lot over the last week or so about the decision by Marissa Mayer, the CEO of Yahoo, to require that all Yahoo employees who live near an office, that they now have to work in the office. There's no more working at home, no more telecommuting. She wants everybody in the office. Now, the logic behind this decision seems to be the feeling that while employees may be more productive when they're working at home, they're not necessarily more innovative. That proximity and interaction breeds real innovation, and she feels that for Yahoo to succeed long term, they have to be together, they have to interact. You know, those water cooler conversations are going to be really important in terms of bringing Yahoo to the next level. Now, one of the reasons I find this interesting is I, quite frankly, have been working at home for a long time. I was doing it before it even got fashionable. The first time I worked at home, I have to tell you, was basically in the late 80s. And I was working for Supermarket Business Magazine at the time as a writer. And my wife was a banker, and we had one kid, one son, and he was off at daycare every day. And one Friday, the person who was taking care of him announced that she'd hurt her back and would no longer be able to take care of him. So we had a problem. That's every parent's worst nightmare. Well, my wife was a banker. There wasn't much she could do. So it was really up to me at that point to see if I could work at home while we dealt with this child care issue. Well, my editor was a guy named Ken Parch. Now, Ken Parch was not a guy known for progressive thinking. But Ken basically said, hey, you know, deal with it. You get your job done, work at home as long as you need to until you get your child care situation worked out. Don't worry about it. And Jeff Schaefer, the publisher of the magazine, he said the same thing. Jeff and Ken were very understanding, and I was basically working at home for a couple of months while we figured out the whole child care situation, and it was interesting. I mean, I would write my stories on this enormous leading-edge computer, right? I think it's the only non-Apple computer I've ever owned in my life. It was enormous and sat on my desk, and I'd make my phone calls, and I'd write my stories, and I don't even think we had email. I think I actually had to mail the stories when I printed them out to the office because I don't think we were connected by email. But I was really productive. I got my work done. I think I was as creative as I could possibly be. I don't think it mattered that I wasn't in the office. And at the same time, I took care of my son. I walked the dog. I did the cooking. I did all those other sorts of things. And you know, it was a real, you know, work-life sort of integration. And I don't think anything suffered. Now, after a couple of months, it ended. We got a nanny, and I went back to the office. But it was 1994. Basically, it was the last time I went to an office with any kind of regularity. In 1994, I went off as a freelance writer and video producer, and since that time, I've either worked at home or I've worked in an office like this one. You know, and even when I've had an office, I've always worked maybe half to 60% of the time at home. I do a morning news beat every morning. I'm at home in my kitchen, drinking coffee, you know, getting things done. You know, so I think I have some familiarity with the whole issue of working at home. I get it. I don't frankly see the problem, but I understand why some people do. The interesting thing about this, you know, since the Marissa Mayer decision is, you know, there's been a lot of commentary and a lot of stories about this. And some people think she's off her rocker, that basically she's violating a basic tenet of the new economy. Some people think she's making a very smart decision, that basically this is the way things ought to be. People ought to be working in an office together, that does breed a greater amount of innovation. There's been a lot of people saying, well, this is what she needs to do to be a better CEO. Some people think she needs to do other things to be a CEO. And some people think it's entirely a women's issue. And I don't think it is a women's issue only. Clearly, that was not my experience. Now, I'm not a guy who normally would urge that we cut somebody's slack. You know, but I make a living not cutting people's slack. But in this case, I think we need to allow Marissa Mayer to do what she needs to do and give her a little time to make this thing work. I just don't think the work at home issue in and of itself is one that needs to be hotly debated in terms of Yahoo. I think she's probably there, and she sees problems that we're not seeing. She sees a culture that somehow is not cohesive, and she thinks that creating greater cohesion in the office is going to lead to greater innovation and allow the company to succeed in a way it has not been doing. You know, she's a smart person. I'm going to trust her on this one. I think that what she's doing with it, she needs to do, and frankly, it's a little bit of tough love, And that's probably what Yahoo needs. Let's cut her a break and see if she can kind of reinvigorate the company. Where I have a problem with the Marissa Mayer decision, however, has nothing to do specifically with working at home. My bigger problem is the fact that I think in making this decision, she's creating greater distance between the senior executives at corporate Yahoo and the people on the front lines who are getting the work done. And this is a subject we talk a lot about here on Morning Newsbeat. It's something I'm really passionate about. That really great leaders don't create that kind of distance between themselves and the people on the front lines. Now, let's think about Marissa Mayer for a second. She is making an awful lot of money, $10, $12 million, right? She was hired by Yahoo at a time where she was pregnant with her first child. When she delivered the child, she didn't, she was off for 2 weeks, and then she was back in the office. She's been quoted as saying things like, well, this isn't so hard, and she had a nursery built next to her office at Yahoo headquarters. And she's getting it done. She's working hard. But I think that there's a real issue here in terms of her not being a really great barometer about what people on the front lines maybe need. Though some of those people could be dealing with real significant issues in terms of child care, in terms of parent care, in terms of all those kinds of things, and they need to integrate their work and personal lives to a different extent, and they don't have the ability to do what she has done, which is, build a nursery right next to her office. It seems to me that, the problem here is we have a CEO who seems to be living on one planet while the employees are living on another. And listen, I get it. CEOs are going to live in nicer houses. CEOs are going to live in different neighborhoods. CEOs are going to drive better cars. They're going to get paid more money. They're going to have more benefits. They're going to have access to the corporate jet. I'm perfectly okay with that. But it'd be nice if they seem to be living on the same planet. And in this case, they don't seem to be. We've talked a lot about that here. I firmly believe that for leaders to be effective, they have to be connected in a fundamental way with what is going on the front lines. Now, there's also a broader issue here as well. I would refer you to a story that ran in the New York Times earlier this week, and it was about corporate profits. And basically what this story says is that companies, we're living at a time where companies are not hiring new people, they're not giving decent raises to current employees, they're cutting back on health care and other benefits, and they're considering even greater cutbacks because of economic and political uncertainties. They're doing all this at a time when corporations are enjoying a kind of golden age of profits. It says here that the corporations in general are looking at their profits being up at an annualized rate of more than 20% since 2008. And listen, the stock market is clearly reflecting that. The stock market keeps going to record highs. And they're doing this at a time when, and they're able to do it because they've improved worker productivity. But those workers who are being more productive, they're not seeing it because their paychecks are not going up. In fact, disposable income since 2008 has gone up an average of just 1.8% a year. There's an enormous disconnect with what's going on at the highest level of corporations and what is going on for the average worker. The workers are on the front lines. I'm not saying they all deserve to be paid a ton of money, but clearly there's some disconnect here. The people at the top and the people on the front lines are on divergent paths. I'm a capitalist. I believe in making money. But I think these divergent paths that they're taking, this isn't healthy, and I'm not sure it's sustainable. So that's where I have a problem with the Yahoo policy. I don't think it's about working at home. I think it's about people on the top and people on the front lines existing on different planets. And I don't think that's healthy for the company. I don't think that's healthy for any company. I think this is an issue that senior executives and boards of directors need to pay attention to. They need to think about it, they need to talk about it, and figure out a way that they can make things more equitable and, consolidate people in a different kind of way and have everybody moving together towards the same goals in terms of getting the company moving in the same direction as opposed to having people with different priorities. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this Thursday morning, and as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.